So, the movie is over 2 years away. Well, probably 2 years at this point. I'm talking about Secret Wars. Welcome to another 10-minute Marvel video. I'm Petter, and today I wanted to toss out kind of my theory for how, like, the very last bit of Secret Wars is going to be. This kind of stems from a rumor we had on the podcast yesterday. And the rumor was that they weren't going to be featuring or having the new X-Men characters in Doomsday and Secret Wars. Some of this is because they don't have a director for that movie yet. Jake Schreier is apparently on the short list for that. I expect they want to find something like that soon. But Greg and I talked a little bit about how we don't think that that might actually be accurate. Because we kind of do expect an X-Men or two, at least, to show up in Secret Wars, but not until the very end of the film. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of Secret Wars. You're probably familiar with it at this point if you watch our videos, kind of keep up on Marvel news, rumors, stuff like that. You know that in a Secret Wars, the universes have been destroyed. There's this last pocket of humanity in a land that, depending on how you kind of look at it, it's either the Beyonder or Doom who kind of has put this together. I suspect with Doomsday that we're going to see that Doom's the one who's put this together in the MCU. So, is this just the new world we're in? No, because this world is going to be controlled by Doom. It's going to be run by Doom. It's not going to be a great spot for everybody. Now that we have that out of the way, Avengers win. Whoever that group is. And most likely it's going to be a group of a mixture of a lot of different characters that we see in Doomsday, as well as some maybe that we don't see in Doomsday. But the implication is it's not going to be any of like the new X-Men characters in this. And I think there's a reason for that. And that reason is Franklin Richards. Now, to dig into the comics a little bit here, Franklin Richards' ability basically allows him to create universes. He is a very powerful, I believe, mutant, actually. In the comics, they've confirmed that ability is mutant, but very powerful ability. And we know from a Funko Pop leak that the child that Sue Storm is expecting, and we know that she's expecting from the trailers, is Franklin. We see a little baby Franklin Funko Pop to go along with Sue Storm. So we know that Franklin is going to be a being who exists. And most likely, at the end of this, when Doom is defeated and everybody's like, okay, what happens next? It's going to be Franklin who restarts the universe. And when the universe restarts, I think we're going to see our main MCU world looking a little bit differently. And this is where we really get into what that end looks like. I think based off of what Franklin knows and has experienced, particularly in Battleworld, he knows of all these different groups who came together to win in this scenario and to give him the opportunity to create new worlds and new universes. So the main MCU world is going to be created, and kind of at this point of creation, we maybe it's from the perspective of the Watcher or something like that. We see the universe be formed again, and we're kind of brought around that universe. We travel to Wakanda and we see Shuri and maybe a new T'Challa there. Then we go to New York. We see that The Watchtower is now the Baxter Building. We see maybe 3 spider folk swinging through the New York City skyline with Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and Peter Parker. And then we travel to the West Coast. We see a West Coast Avengers team with Scarlet Witch, with Vision, with some other characters, maybe Hawkeye out there as well. Wonder Man even could show up there if they want to continue that, depending on what they think of that show. But you start to have this Avengers team over there. Then you swing over to another location. We see kind of the Avengers compound again, and we see different actors playing your Iron Man, your Doctor Strange, your whoever it might be. And then we go to upstate New York, and we see Xavier's School for Gifted Children. Not only that, we see some of those gifted children. We see some of the characters that we're going to get to know in the X-Men. And this is where they could maybe keep it a little bit more tightly focused. Maybe you see a Charles either rolling, or I like the idea that Charles isn't in the wheelchair, yet he is walking. We see him walking with Magneto. And behind them, we see Jean Grey and Cyclops kind of corralling a group of kids, of mutants, different ones that you probably could recognize from the powers, but not necessarily ones who are going to be super important in the X-Men saga. We see them and kind of leading them in the background. And those are our staple characters there. So, well, I do think the rumor in a lot of ways is correct that we're not going to get the new X-Men as major players in Secret Wars. And they said not in Doomsday or Secret Wars, no new X-Men. But this end scene, this one scene, could be filmed. I mean, the end scene for Thunderbolts was filmed 4 weeks prior to the release of the movie, or finished 4 weeks prior to the release of the movie. I'm not sure which exactly, I forget. But we could be looking at something like that. That when they're starting to get ready to film the X-Men, and if they can, please, just keep it secret. Please, please, please. I don't know that they'd be able to do it, but have that be a reveal for people of like, hey, this is the X-Men. These are going to be our starting characters who we meet as the X-Men team. And not even, I mean, you watch my video on planning out 10 years of the X-Men, you can check that out. It doesn't even have to be they're the ones that we meet first, but they're the foundation of the school. And I think as fans, we would just love to have that tease, that reveal. It would cap off something that should be super epic. And the Russo brothers, and this is another reason why I think this could happen, they talked about how like the events of Infinity War and Endgame were really the end of a chapter in the MCU. You had Captain America, you had Iron Man, you had Black Widow all leaving during that time. But Secret Wars is supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter. And I think to really say, yes, this is a beginning of a new world, and Franklin Richards has the ability to put everything into there anew, is really interesting. Especially if you don't have maybe the OG Fox X-Men in Secret Wars a ton, or they don't survive Secret Wars. I think there's a chance they don't survive Doomsday, actually. So you have them instead just kind of have kind of the farewell to the Fox X-Men and Doomsday. You have the events of Secret Wars, where we lose some more of the Avengers characters, and then Reed recreates it into what the MCU looks like going forward. And I think there's a lot of things I can point to for this, a lot of ideas that can come together, quotes from people. Kevin Feige's statement even that he doesn't want it to feel like homework. To me, that says there's a chance of this, because how do you make it not feel like homework? New actors playing new versions of those characters is a great way to do that. And to set that all up at the end of Secret Wars really allows people to maybe pick and choose a bit more of what they want to watch, because it's easy to say the previous continuity doesn't matter. And I think, just to kind of wrap this up, this can lead into something good. This can lead into a Sony Spider-Man focused universe where they really try and collaborate more with Marvel and Disney on creating their own universe within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Basically saying, we're going to have Sony-led Spider movies, but we want to give you a little bit of money to make sure we stay in alignment so that people feel like they're watching an MCU movie. And then you could have that movie offshoot. Then you have the Fox, or not the Fox, but the X-Men movie part of the universe. So if you wanted to follow that line, you could, because they're going to be dealing with their own problems. And sure, that's going to show up in the background of other movies, but it's not going to be that focal point. Or maybe you just really like the Avengers and those characters. Those characters will get their reboot and kind of their leading forward into new movies as well. And that, I think, could be an awesome way to do that soft reboot at the end of Secret Wars, to give us fans something really exciting, I think, to see. And honestly, it will make this multiverse saga, I think, really feel great at the end, and may cover up a little bit of the troubles that it went through. Some can be blamed on the trying to pump out too much at once. Some can be blamed on COVID. Some can be blamed just on, well, actually I did another video on it, on how Marvel can write itself, and just the whole focus being on the destination instead of the journey. But let me know your thoughts on this theory that I have down in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up, and check out the conversation that Greg and I had on the 10-Minute Marvel podcast as well. You can find that podcast here on YouTube. Click onto the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and we appreciate everybody who has subscribed and is checking out the videos. And then click that notification bell, followed up by clicking on the podcast tab. Or you can search for 10-Minute Marvel wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcast from. But with that, we'll see you next time.